Here's Jeff Paterson of RinkWide Vancouver, our Canucks reporter, after a 3-game win streak for the Vancouver Canucks, one off the season high. They have 2 modest win streaks on the season. Jeff, how are they getting it done? What have you seen as a common bond between these wins over Washington, St. Louis, and now Nashville?
Well, just listening to Blake there talking about the BZ4X, and look, the Canucks have that new car smell all of a sudden, right? They're driving off the lot. Look out. Full tank of gas, and there's no stopping them now. I think there's a couple things. They haven't trailed on this win streak. They have opened the scoring in the first period of all 3 games, and it is remarkable what a difference it makes when you're not constantly chasing. And that happened so much in the first half of the season. Get down. We know that offense is still a bit of an issue for this group, and so I think it's freeing them up a little bit. The other part, guys, is the other end of the ice. 3 wins. They've given up 4 goals total in those 3 games. You do that, you're going to win more often than not. So held the Capitals to 1, St. Louis got 2, and Nashville got 1, and here they are on a 3-game win streak, and we'll see if they can push it to 4 in Dallas on Friday night.
I'm going to downgrade them to a nice pre-owned because while the first period was great, first few minutes of the second, fabulous, their ability to protect the lead was... Thatcher, can you do this for us, please? Not exactly nursing home the lead like we've seen, the President's Trophy winning teams of years gone by do so. Now, I'm not going to be too critical on that because, Jeff, that's how much I liked the first period. And again, those first few minutes of the second as well, where they carried the puck in across the blue line, Jeff, where they held on to the puck and didn't make I'm holding a hand grenade play with the puck as well. Like, they proved, I hope, to the head coach that they are capable of playing some offensive hockey.
Yeah, it's not a perfect performance by any stretch of the imagination, but there was a lot to like in the first period. I'm with you there. 13 shots on goal. I think it's 4 straight games, 5 of the last 6 that they've reached double digits in shots. Remember, it wasn't that long ago when was the last time this team got to double digits in shots in a first period? Well, it does feel like they're coming out of their thaw a little bit here now. And man, there was a lot to like in that first goal. The fact that, they went to the attack, some pretty dynamic puck movement. We talk about Quinn Hughes and you run out of superlatives, and then you see a play like that where, like, the pass, whatever. I mean, it's a Quinn Hughes pass. He puts it on the tape of Nils Höglander. But I just love the fact that he recognizes in the moment, inside his own blue line, that there's a turnover and they're going to the attack and there is no hesitation. Like, he is jumping into the rush at that point. And when he does, and he has the puck, good things happen. Elias Paterson gets an assist. Linus Karlsson is all of a sudden becoming this screen machine. Like, he's the guy in front of the net there. And how about Höglander deking Roman Josi, of all people, like, out of his jockstrap down to the ice and creates enough space there to get a shot away. So, 4 of the 5 guys on the ice involved in that play, making good things happen. You're right, though. Like, why can't they? Like, they got the 2-1 lead and then basically just parked the bus and against better teams, and there are a lot of them in the National Hockey League. I know the Preds have been better in January, but there are much better, stiffer opponents out there. We've seen it, that it's come back to bite the Canucks. So, yes, you'd think that they've learned their hard lessons by now. I don't know. But yes, more of the first period, a little bit less of what we saw in the second, and then the third really holding on and having to kill off penalties and all those types of things. But the through line there is that, hey, Thatcher Demko needed a performance like that. He delivered. Once they got to 2-1, there wasn't much in the way of offense in the Vancouver Canucks. That's like all high leverage hockey for Thatcher Demko with a 2-1 lead over the course of the final 40 minutes. No margin for error. He got a little help from post and a crossbar, but that's all right. Otherwise, he did his part, and he gave them the saves that he hasn't been giving them in those big moments. So season high for him, 31 saves on the night, and certainly you hope it's something to build off of.
Different player.
Yeah, I mean, he makes a couple of terrific saves in the first period when the game is very much in doubt. I've got to ask you how nobody went to collect the puck for Linus Karlsson's first goal, Jeff.
I wish I had an answer for you. The video evidence is not flattering.
No.
On the part of the linesman scoops it up, tries to hand it to Nils Höglander, who's like, I got my 4th of the season already tonight. I don't need to be doing the heavy lifting here for anybody else. And then Elias Pettersson's right behind him, and Paterson sort of waves him off as well. Like, I don't get it, because they had to know it was the guy's first NHL goal. So, yeah, I mean, a little levity, and we can laugh about it now. But bottom line is he got his puck, and that part's good, and so was the goal. I liked a lot about the goal. But, yeah, I mean, I'm really curious how usually somebody's in there fishing right away to get the puck and make sure that you get the souvenir.
Especially a veteran, and you're laughing, but there are others going, see, they don't care about each other. They're not playing for each other. They don't even pick up the puck for the poor
As we pointed out earlier, Jeff, they have done that this season. Is it just a brain fart city here that not even people on the bench seem to be yelling about it?
No.
Is it, or is it an indicator of exactly where we've come at this point in the season? Because, again, it did happen earlier in the year where they were on these, because there's been a lot of rookie goals here.
Look, there's a lot of stuff that has gone on this year and this week, but we should not lose our manners here as Vancouver Canucks. You get the puck for the rookie.
Is it a symptom, Jeff?
I can't go there. I mean, 3 Swedes. Höglander wasn't that long ago that he was scoring his first in the National Hockey League. He was the one that surprised me, because I think he and Karlsson are probably buddies on some level, and certainly line mates and teammates. So I'm going to call it an oversight. Again, just kind of like the 3 stars in the building, and we had some fun with that on RinkWide last night. There were a few things that didn't make sense at Bridgestone Arena, and that was clearly one of them. But you're right. Like, when you think of the guys, Karlsson becomes the 6th player to score for both Abbotsford and Vancouver this season. So it says something about the developmental system and the fact they're getting some production here. But, Max Sasson scored his first. Archie Baines got his first of the season.
Lekramaki
here.
Lekramaki.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're right. They've gone through this drill on a handful of occasions and got it right in the past. And I don't know what went on. Not there. But, it would have been a kind of funny question to put to either Höglander or Paterson after the hockey game.
You mentioned the superlatives for Quinn Hughes. He should have had 2 goals last night, too. Like, I mean, he continues to stake his claim to a Hart Trophy campaign, doing just what you talked about there, just seeing the opportunity for a quick rush the other way. Him leading the rush on multiple occasions here, Jeff. Like, the guy literally has the team on his back. Not literally, I know, Matt. You know what I mean.
Day to day with a back injury.
Yes.
Way too much heavy
lifting.
lifting.
He could do it. I think he could do it literally.
Look, you were gone skiing last Friday when I sat in for you. Fortunately, we've burned all of the digital evidence. But I said to Matt that it was probably time to park the Quinn Hughes for Hart discussion, with all due respect to Quinn Hughes. But it was more that if this team doesn't get to the playoffs, I still hold on to this. Like, Quinn is playing at a Hart caliber level. I want to be 100% clear on that. But if they don't make the playoffs, like, what are we doing here as a league if you're handing out the single biggest individual award to a guy on the 19th place team? Like, how can that make sense? Like, there's a lot of things about the NHL that don't make sense, but that one to me. And again, people fall into the strict definition of most valuable to his team. I've never really liked the wording there, but if that is the wording, then it is impossible to find a guy that is more valuable to his team than Quinn Hughes to the Vancouver Canucks right now. And I pointed it out on X after the hockey game. On pace for 95 points as a defenseman on a team that is 20th in the National Hockey League in offense right now. There are only 2 players in the league that have more points since he returned from his injury in early January. And guys, he's doing all of this with the hand, still with the splint or the apparatus on it. Like, he's not 100%, but his game is 100%. And you just marvel at him on a nightly basis. So they're back above the playoff bar. Let the conversation about Quinn for Hart begin again.
Yes, we burned the digital evidence. Jeff was ending the Hart campaign. I think he was also done with Linus Karlsson last Friday, but my memory's a little foggy on that one. On that one as well, Jeff. Hey, I know he talked about Tocchet's style of hockey, and he has been most critical this year. But a few weeks ago, Jeff, during that Eastern road trip, I want to say after the Montreal game, but it could have been later, Tocchet talked about we're trying to change the way we play here a little bit. And he mentioned shots on goal, to your stat about how often now they're getting more than 10 in the first period. A couple weeks later, looks like it's taking a little bit more root. But also, guys, last year, one of the great things about the Canucks was balance. They had 3 balanced lines. They had balanced defense pairs, even with Hughes and Hronek playing together, because they had more depth and talent in the second and third pairs. It looks like balance is back in a big way with these Canucks, Jeff.
Certainly, that's the idea behind what Rick Tocchet is doing. But as I look on paper, I don't love Jake DeBrusk with Pius Suter. Jake DeBrusk has gone 11 games without a goal. Pius Suter, yeah, I know he scored an empty netter and he scored in 2 games, and you hope that that's some sort of offensive awakening, but he hasn't been any kind of playmaker. Certainly for a guy that was brought in DeBrusk to score all these goals for you. And now Jake, we know he's streaky, but this is his longest streak of inactivity. So I don't love that combination. I don't like the fact that Danton Heinen has somehow found his way back to the top 6 and on a line with JT Miller and Brock Besser. And yeah, look, great story. And I love guys scoring their first NHL goals. And Linus Karlsson's been way better on this call-up than any previous one. So something seems to have clicked here, seems to be figuring it out, get to the front of the net, even his play on his goal where he kind of gets lost in the crowd and, makes himself available for a terrific pass from Tyler Myers. But you've got Elias Pettersson, $11.6 million Elias Pettersson, and you start the game last night. Hoaglander's got 3 on the season, and Linus Karlsson didn't have a point in the National Hockey League. So, the idea is balance, but I'm not sure that, there's a flaw on every line, it feels like. But again, if they're defending as well as they are and they get in the kind of goaltending, then you don't need as much offense as perhaps you think you did or you required earlier in the season when they were giving up a few more goals. So I think they're going to keep pushing along here with this sort of approach. But again, I just... is Dakota Joshua going to be a 4th-line guy? Is he going to launch at any point? Will he work his way up higher in the lineup? And Kiefer Sherwood, I think, at some point is going to get back in here. He's the only injured body right now. So there are some pieces that they can inject at some point. But just in the here and now, wins are good. The vibe is better. But I don't know that every issue is solved based on the deployment that they're running with right now.
All right.
By the way, criticism of Paterson is often... he doesn't elevate the players around him. He seems to be doing okay with these 2 guys that don't exactly have thick resumes. The other kudos I want to give out is Tyler Myers, who continues to play pretty darn well. That is some vintage Tyler Myers here over the last couple of nights. And I mean vintage like Buffalo Sabres vintage, like holding on to the puck, making plays. It's been pretty good from the big man, and I think this is the first on this show, Matt. I don't think I've ever said, boy, is Tyler Myers playing good, but he's playing very well.
Yeah, and to hear Rick talk about how hard he worked during the 3-game suspension that didn't put his feet up, and I'll catch you on the other side here, put in the effort and was ready to go when the suspension was over. And we've said it all. True pro through and through, right? Nobody has ever questioned this guy's professionalism. He was making too much money on the last contract. That's the biggest knock on him, and that's not his fault at all. But at $3 million right now, dare I say he's a value contract, which is a pretty wild swing given just the way that he was viewed here in this market for the duration of that last contract. But I like the fact, sort of to come back to your question, Matt, about what's different or what's going on, right? Hughes and Hronek split. Quinn Hughes has shown it doesn't matter who he plays with. So if you've got Tyler Myers at or near the top of his game, he can hold up his end of the bargain there. That allows Hronek to drop down. Derek Forbert's just a veteran presence. There's no flash there, but I think he's been more than capable. And then Carson Soucy drops down to a 3rd pair. Given the kind of season he's had, I'm okay with Soucy in a 3rd pair capacity. But I do think that splitting Hughes and Hronek, Tyler Myers has been a piece of that puzzle that's allowed them to do it. And the proof is that they're not giving up many goals, and they're starting to win some hockey games here.
Okay, our first opportunity to talk to you since Jim Rutherford set the world afire earlier this week. Jeff, what did you make of the president's comments about the Miller-Pettersson matter?
Yeah, like everybody. I thought this market was going to be glowing after a 5-2 win in St. Louis, where they did a lot of good things. I thought that was going to be the talk. Back-to-back wins for the first time in a while, and, of course, wake up to those comments. So, the first thing that jumped out at me was once and for all, just putting it as clearly as possible that, yes, this is a rift that exists And beyond that, says that it's a rift that cannot be solved, that, the fact that they've tried, and he thought that several times that they had moved past, and yet it just continues to come full circle here. So there was a ton to dive into there. This idea, I guess as I read through it, and I thought it was just going to continue to be about JT and Elias Paterson. And when Quinn Hughes' name was invoked later in the article, that one made me sit up. Now, I get that the quote was, "We want him here forever," but if we're tearing this thing down, he's got to go as well. That's a pretty inflammatory comment from the president of hockey operations. So one of the things that really surprised me, I guess, guys, was the contrast. That the week earlier, Patrick Allvin stood in there, answered questions for 20 minutes, talked, but didn't really say much. But what he did say was, the adversity's behind us. I'm backing this core. I believe in this group. And when I said, "Do you think this is a playoff team?" he looked me in the eye and he said, "Yeah, I think we're a playoff team." A week later, Jim Rutherford comes out and says, "We can't be competitive with this group, that, we've come to that conclusion that essentially it has to be stripped down." So look, messaging hasn't been their strong suit for a while now. And I think this was just another indication of that, where Patrick Allvin was trying to make sure that he didn't fan the flames. Jim Rutherford was like, "Yeah, forget that. I'm coming out both guns a-blazing here." And so, it's still reverberating in the market. It took me back to the days when Jim Rutherford went on the Right Shoulder Radio and blasted Bruce Boudreau, didn't hold back then. And obviously change came shortly after that. And here we are a couple of years later. The funny part in that was, remember, he said what he said about Bruce Boudreau on the radio. Then when they hired Rick Tocchet, Jim Rutherford said, "I got to stop talking. I got to stop talking." And he did for a little while, but ultimately couldn't help himself here, I suppose. And it was an incredible read. Like, good for Gary Mason to get those sort of quotes. And then obviously there was still more in the chamber.
Oh my God, notebook dump.
That part was incredible as well.
Yeah, talking about Zadorov, and it sounded like
Demko and others.
They're pointing fingers at Zadorov, saying, "No, we did everything he said to do, and he didn't want to come." By the way, you mentioned Boudreau did the podcast tour yesterday again, and I think this has been said once before, but he really put it in lights this time, that they on multiple occasions tried to turn Quinn Hughes into a center from management, and he was like, "I'm not doing that." That's startling to hear from the former Canucks head coach.
Yeah, I listened to the entire episode, and you're right, Bruce has made the rounds. He's said what he has said a lot of times, but I thought it was just a fascinating sort of reveal of his time here in Vancouver, some of the behind-the-scenes things that I hadn't heard him talk about, just in terms of planning and preparation for a season, and some of the interference that he felt upper management was running on his plans, and sort of who he trusted in there and who he didn't, and all those. So it's out there. If people want to look for a different podcast alternative, you might want to check out. I thought it was pretty revealing, and just some things that talked about how valuable he thought Tanner Pearson was in the locker room, which was something that Tanner's bro through and through. But when I looked at the makeup of that roster then, he's not a guy that I thought was kind of the peacemaker in that locker room necessarily, but Bruce really kind of went out of his way to point out how much and how valuable he thought Tanner Pearson was in that role for that locker room.
Well, we'll see if it can be 4 in a row for only the second time all year. Friday in Dallas. Jeff's got you covered with RinkWide Vancouver. And Jeff, we'll catch up on S&P here on Monday. Thanks for this, bud.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. I'm sure you guys have talked about. They catch a bit of a break. You hate to see good players out, but Miro Heiskanen now ruled out, and possibly for the Four Nations as well. That's a blow. Obviously for Dallas in the short term, but for Team Finland. The other thing, guys, is if they can get a result out of Dallas, they get the Detroit Red Wings in on Sunday. It's a 5 o'clock start, first and foremost, so a bit of an odd start. The Wings are the late game on Hockey Night on Saturday in Calgary. So they play the late game, quick turnaround with travel.
Wow.
And
Losing
probably getting
your
their backup goaltender. It'll be 3 and 4 for them after the trip starts in Edmonton. So an opportunity. And remember, they've knocked off the consecutive wins with Washington and St. Louis, but the quest continues for those consecutive home ice victories. Got the first leg with the Washington Capitals. Detroit stands. The Red Wings are what stand between the Canucks and the first consecutive home ice wins.
Yeah, and no sympathy for the Wings, okay? That was a 9 a.m. Pacific start in Detroit earlier this season, if you remember.
True.
12 local.
It was a fun game. Jake DeBrusk got a hat trick.
It sure was.
Won in overtime.
Absolutely. Play that game again.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Have a great weekend, guys.